Hello, I'm Miranda Brawn, and I'm the founder and the president of the Miranda Brawn Diversity Leadership Foundation. I'm also the host and the producer for the D.A.R.E podcast. This D.A.R.E podcast is all about having a successful mindset, and we have a new partnership with City AM, where we're going to be interviewing some of the most successful mindsets in the City of London. Now, for those of you who might be wondering, well, what does the D.A.R.E podcast stand for? D.A.R.E is a model that I've been using throughout my success mindset coaching. D stands for having the determination to dream bigger. A is taking the appropriate action. R is having the resilience, and also the self-reassessment in terms of how to look at your skill sets. And the E is having that positive energy to make your dreams come true. So if you would like to be inspired and learn how to develop a successful mindset, you need to be tuning in to our podcast episodes where we will be interviewing some of the most successful mindsets in the City of London. And it all starts right here, right now. So stay tuned. It's really going to be fun. And there's going to be lots of laughter and lots of honest, real talk. So don't forget to tune in, follow and subscribe. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the D.A.R.E podcast. This is a successful mindset podcast and it's been partnered by City AM. I'm Miranda Brawn, the host and the producer, and we have an amazing guest today. She's one of the most successful mindsets in the City of London. Think about one of the top legal brains, and we have Tamara Box. Welcome to the D.A.R.E podcast, Tamara.
Thank you, Miranda. Great to be here.
We need to clap. So I always like to have our guests introduce themselves. So why don't you introduce yourself to our lovely audience who are watching us on YouTube and all the usual audio podcast platforms.
Delighted to. So I'm Tamara Box. As you can tell from the accent, I'm not originally from here, but I am a British citizen and my heart is absolutely here in the UK. I'm a lawyer. I have been a lawyer for 30 some odd years now. We can fluff over that a bit. It's fine. Actually, I'm pretty proud of that, to be quite honest.
Totally.
So I have had a wonderful career in law. I luckily get to do lots of other things in my life as well. So in addition to working as a finance lawyer, getting the privilege of leading Reed Smith as the managing partner for Europe and Middle East, for many years.
How many years have you been at Reed Smith?
I've been at Reed Smith for 12 and a half years now. I was on our board for 10 years and on our senior management team, there we go, for just over 7 years. And I just stepped down last year, getting back to working with clients, being a deal junkie. I'm a deal junkie at heart, to be honest.
Yeah.
But also giving me a little bit more time to focus on some things that I also love outside of the legal world. So charities, some boards that I do, the Chartered Management Institute, a little bit of advisory board work with some fintechs. Having a blast.
Oh, it sounds amazing. That's how we met. We met through Cancer Research UK, Women of Influence.
We did.
And that was, I don't know, nearly 10 years ago.
It was.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
And we raised nearly £1 million. I remember that. We had an event, was it the British Museum?
We had several events at the British Museum. It was a wonderful experience. And I think a great chance to kind of hone in on some passions, which is probably how I think of my life. You know, what are the passions you have in your life and how do you get to pursue them? So one of my passions is women. One of my passions is education. One of my passions is cancer and hopefully curing cancer someday.
Yes.
And then obviously with Cancer Research UK and the Women of Influence initiative that we worked on, we got to really work particularly two of those, which was, how do we, cure cancer and deal with that? But also how do we get more women involved in that effort?
Yeah.
So, that got us to mentor some female fellows that Cancer Research UK.
Yeah, I'm still really good friends with one of them, my very first mentee. She's amazing.
Absolutely. And I think you really saw how, despite what you might have otherwise thought, the world of, academic research and, the sort of ivory towers of big brains really still had some of the same issues we face in the city and, indeed elsewhere as women. And so, our ability to support and mentor those female fellows led to some great results for Cancer Research UK in terms of keeping women in research, building that program, but also awards And, those women have gone on to be incredibly successful.
Yeah.
And as you say, we raised almost £1 million.
I know, which is amazing. And it's such great work in terms of just the female mindsets that we got. They've female scientists doing great work to help beat cancer, which is just mind-blowing.
Agreed.
So you've mentioned that you're not from here, which is the United Kingdom, for anyone that's watching us globally and might not be aware of where we are. Yeah. And we are recording in the City AM London podcast studio. So why don't we go back all the way back to the beginning, back to your childhood.
Sure.
Where were you born and raised, and what were you like as a child?
I was born in Texas, actually Lubbock, Texas, of all places, but grew up mostly outside of Houston.
Yeah.
I was definitely a tomboy as a child. I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player.
Stop it!
I was this tall, which is not that tall for anyone listening. I was this tall when I was 8, though, so I was an absolutely avid basketball player and really loved it. Went to basketball camps with the Flying Queens, a professional women's basketball team,
very good.
And back when I was younger. But probably more than the basketball future, which clearly wasn't going to pan out for me. Apparently, I was a very argumentative child. So I was told from a very young age that I should be a lawyer. And so I think, I kind of always had that in my head that I would be a lawyer someday.
Planted that seed.
And, look, I had a perfectly lovely childhood in Texas. I have fabulous parents. I'm an only child. I have a, big, wide family that, we were very close to growing up. We went camping every summer. So it was, very typical Texan childhood, frankly. Yeah. But it did lead to being a lawyer.
I love that. I love that story. It's funny because when I was younger, I always looked older than my age, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then because I was so tall and I looked older than my age, when it came to school photos, I went to a mixed school. Did you have to end up standing at the back of all the boys and all the girls were shorter, so they'd be at the front?
I did early on. Obviously, by high school, when I was still
all the boys catch up. Yeah.
The boys and the girls, the very, very tall girls on the basketball team that dwarfed me by then. Sadly, that didn't last for me. But
So you're at school. You want to be a lawyer. What was your journey? How did you go down that route? Did you go to university in the States?
So this is a kind of crazy story. So
I love crazy stories. Let me kick back into this.
I did go to university in the States when I was in high school, and I have a son who's now doing university applications and decisions and all of that, and it's so different.
This is how long we've known each other. Remember when he was how long?
You wouldn't recognize him. But so look, I took the SAT, got offered a scholarship at a university in Texas called Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and I took it. I mean, it was really that simple. I really didn't think an awful lot about it. The attraction for Baylor was they had a program where I could do 3 years of undergraduate and 3 years of law, so it cuts a year out, basically, and get to be a lawyer in 6 years' time. So I thought, brilliant, I'll do that. Yeah. Went to Baylor. It's, say, in a town called Waco, which is now famous for things that it was not famous for when I went to Baylor. Southern Baptist University, private school, and I'll be honest, great experience. It's where I fell in love with economics, so I can't argue that.
I thought you were going to say end it with something else then, economics.
Economics, and I got really lucky. I had economics professors that really inspired me.
Yeah.
And I think probably recognized in me that I was thinking, I felt a little unfulfilled by being in Baylor, and partly it was looking around and thinking everyone looked and sounded just like me, and they did. It was small town in Texas. They didn't come from that far away typically, and when they did, they still had very similar backgrounds. So I had one professor that I think made an offhand comment one day and said, "Look, you are clearly in love with economics. It's wonderful to see. If you're really serious about it, you might want to think about being at either the University of Chicago or the London School of Economics." Well, University of Chicago didn't sound that exciting, but London School of Economics sounded amazing.
Yes.
So now you have to remember we're back in the dark ages. So, I wrote off to the London School of Economics and said, I'd really like to come to your school and I want to transfer. I think I'm just going to come and go to your school.
Yeah.
And they wrote back to me, I mean that, no emails, nothing, and said, we don't take transfer students, but you could come as a junior year broad or a general course student, as they called it.
Okay.
So I said to Baylor, I'm going as a general, course student to the London School of Economics, and I'll see you my senior year. Baylor said to me, we won't count any of your credits and you'll lose your scholarship if you do that.
Oh, wow.
So again, I wrote back to the London School of Economics my very big sob story about desperately wanting to come to their school.
Yeah.
And could they please consider taking me as a transfer student? And their response was, we really don't do that. But if you come as a general course student and take all the courses you would take in your second year of the course you choose, then we will let you stay if you do well enough.
Ding dong.
Real words.
Yeah.
So, having been to London once in my life and not having any idea where the school was, because I was on vacation, you know, my high school graduation present was to come to London.
Yeah.
I got on a plane and flew over. Had to find a place to live. Didn't know anyone here at all.
And how old were you at this age?
At that point, I would have been 18, actually going on 19.
That's brave to do that.
Yeah, it was amazing, actually. And it was life-changing.
Yeah.
I got to the LSE where there were 160 countries represented in the student body. And not only was that eye-opening and life-changing, it's also the first time in my life that I was different.
Yeah.
And so I got to be fully different to everyone around me. And, you know, I got to embody what does a Texan look like, you know, in London, and answer the question, who is J.R.? And have you met him?
Gosh, yeah. You can remember back that far.
I do.
Everyone.
But he got shot.
He got shot, exactly. So, but yes, it was a lot of fun. And of course, I, you know, crazily chose monetary economics. Mervyn King and Charles Goodhart were the professors. Absolutely incredible course, very hard.
Yeah.
Worked the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Had an amazing experience. Luckily did well enough to get to stay.
Of course you did.
So I graduated from the London School of Economics and then had a giant blonde moment. So this is, I mean, you look at this and think it's ridiculous. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Yes.
But I've just done an undergraduate degree, not in law, of course, as you would do here, but in monetary economics. So I thought, well, I have to go back to the States to do a graduate degree in law and become a lawyer. And then I'll just interview only with law firms that have London offices. I'll come back to London. Nobody explained conversion courses or the ability to...
But were there even conversion courses then?
There were.
I mean,
There were.
you're like, I'm not that old.
Exactly. There were.
Because I did BPP, because I did a conversion course at BPP Law School in Holborn.
Yeah.
In 2000.
Which is where I took my lawyer's transfer test when I came back.
2002, that's when I did it.
Yeah. So, you know, even by then, I came back to London. I finally got back to London in 1997 and did my back then it was the QLTT to qualify here then. But crazily, I just meant I went back to the States for law school. So I did law school at Georgetown, had a great time.
Yeah.
Interviewed truly only with New York firms that had London offices. So and got there, badgered the hell out of my firm to send me to London, and they sent me to Singapore. Never been to Asia before in my life. Had no idea what I was getting into.
And how old are you at this point when you're
26?
Okay.
2 years qualified.
Yeah.
Got on a plane, moved to Asia. That was it. I lived there when I arrived.
Great experience, though.
Amazing experience to work with.
I've seen the changes over the decades.
Incredible. I mean, it's so different now to what it was then. Then it was very weird to be an expat woman who worked. It was very weird to be a single expat woman in Singapore. It's the first time I actually joined a women's business group.
Interesting.
Really introduced me to the opportunity that women can offer each other and support, etc. So that was, that was a real eye opener because there were not that many women working in Singapore. I got lucky. I had, fabulous Singaporean friends in my office that were amazing to hang out with, and I loved the experience there. Most importantly, however, I met my husband.
That's the
and that helped. Yeah, exactly. Helped that he was a Brit. I always say London's my first love. Yeah. My second love had the right passport to get me back.
Ding dong, I like that.
Exactly. So we got married in Singapore and moved back to London almost immediately. So yeah,
I love that.
Great.
It's funny. One of the things we were saying earlier on before we started recording was, one of our one of my mottos is if you don't ask, you don't get. And don't take no for an answer. You've got to have that resilience, which is what the R stands for in D.A.R.E. So I love the fact that you kept going back until you got
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a lovely story. It's funny, everyone that comes on the D.A.R.E podcast, everyone's got that unconventional journey and story, which I think just lives life up a bit.
Well, my motto is say yes, and that's pretty much how I got there, right? So go to Singapore? Okay, sure. Why not?
I'll figure it out. I'll get to London somehow.
Somehow or another, it will work out.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So you're in the boardroom and you're doing so much great stuff. But before we get to that, so we've got a range of different people, different audiences, from classroom to the boardroom, within law and outside law, in lots of different sectors, lots of different age groups and backgrounds. But we've also got students and diverse leaders, future leaders. What advice would you give to someone listening? And this could be for anyone really, but what advice would you give to them who wants to enter the legal world or even enter the City of London? Because we've both worked in the City of London for decades. What advice would you give to someone? Because someone who's on the outside, especially coming into the City of London, is probably a scary place, and maybe some people don't even know how to get in. So what advice would you give to someone that wants to get in?
I think I'd start with it's really not a scary place.
Yeah.
The short answer is there's always a way into almost everything.
Yeah.
And what you see on first glance is almost never what actually is there. But the real kind of practical answer is, find someone, anyone, and the world is so connected now, it's not hard, that you can reach out to and ask honest questions. Find people doing jobs you think look interesting. Luckily, people are really easily flattered. So if you tell them that you want to talk to them about themselves, most people will say, sure, I'll give you 30 minutes. And, the students who reached out to me in that way will certainly know that I very regularly say yes to that. So it is, talk to someone who can demystify some of those things for you. We all get to our jobs, our careers, and, our meant-to-bes in very different ways. But, you have the power to control that. And especially now, when I think back to when I had to write letters to get to go to the LSE, now there's so many different ways to connect with people. And they're all largely looking forward to how they can help someone. They want to pay it forward the way, you and I will always think about doing. And so I think, really don't let things put you off just because they look different or even scary, different to what you're used to, or you think you don't know anyone. Well, then find someone and get to know them. And then all of a sudden, everything becomes much more accessible. Then you get your opportunities to say yes, because there will be someone who says, would you like to come in for an internship? Would you like to meet someone to talk about a job? Would you like to talk to someone? Just say yes.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because Reed Smith, with the Miranda Brawn Diversity Leadership Foundation, we are doing so much to help mentor, guide, work experience, fund our next generation of diverse lawyers and lots of different leaders from all different sectors. But it's wonderful to have the support from you, Reed Smith. We've even got one of your lawyers, Jonathan, who's a trustee on our board. He's our youngest trustee. And I thought it's really important when we talk about the boardroom and what should we be doing to make it more sustainable, more inclusive. It's so important that we have young voices in the boardroom as well. Now, one of the things that I have been working on is the Brawn Review with Oxford University when I started as a senior visiting fellow 18 months ago. And it's on boardroom sustainability, inclusion and corporate governance. Sure. What do you think we should be doing to make the boardroom more inclusive? I think they're trying to make it more diverse, and clearly with the 30% Club. Yeah. And I know you're one of the founding committee members there. Yeah. They're doing great work there. And now we've got 42% of women. I think we can get to 50. I think we can get to 50% of women in the boardroom. But what else do you think we should be doing to get more And so, we're getting there, women, but then we've got ethnicity, we've got disability, we've got age. There's so much more that we can be doing. What do you think we should be doing to make the boardroom more inclusive and more sustainable?
Well, look, I think you're 100% right about some of the successes that we have seen. So we know things are possible when you focus on them. And also when you offer not only the moral imperative, and there is a moral imperative for representation, but the real honest answer about how good this is for your business, for productivity, often for results, but certainly for those businesses, that face the public in any way, shape, or form, and really find me one that doesn't these days, then representation actually does make your business better. We could go through a myriad of stories about businesses who have failed to have people who will see the pitfalls and have made huge mistakes. And those mistakes are costly. So what you're looking for in the boardroom is not only people who have the financial nous, who understand the P&L, who maybe have leadership in their backgrounds, but also the people who are going to help you see your blind spots. And youth is a great, it's absolutely a great observation. I think we are seeing that more and more. For a little while, digital and youth was almost synonymous, but less so these days.
Because the youth are getting older now.
The youth are getting older. And many, many, many more people are digitally native.
Yeah.
That's certainly there. I think, as we look at sustainability, the mindsets, are really different in different parts of our population. So again, you really want that challenge in the room. And I think, realistically, we have lots of different ways to represent the cognitive diversity that we're looking for. Sometimes the physical characteristics that, we naturally think of are obvious, but so are things like socioeconomic background, what are your experiences? What industries have you come from? How do you offer a different perspective? And I think, over and over in my career, I can honestly say the more different perspectives in the teams in which I work, whether that's in boardrooms, whether that's in, client-facing work that we do in the law firm, the more perspectives you have, the better your product and your output.
100%, yeah.
And, all of that, it's hard work. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Different perspectives also can mean, it can mean challenge.
Yeah.
It can mean disagreement. It can mean all of those things that you have to work through. But it also enables you to hopefully see what you might face as you go forward, whether that's a change in your strategy, it's a new product, it's identifying a risk that, might exist. All those things enable you to challenge in the moment, what that looks like. And then to have someone say, what about? And you to realize that, well, none of us would have thought of that, and I think that's always been the strongest argument for having those differences, in a team.
Yeah.
And, I always think, what are you looking for when you go out? It's not the best person for the job. It's the best person for the team.
Yeah.
And that often involves what you don't have,
100%.
what isn't in the room.
Yeah. That's so true. It's funny because I'm on various boards as well. For example, I joined the UK's largest NHS Foundation Trust.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they want to do is actually diversify the board, not just from what you might look like physically,
Sure.
but also from experience. And if you've got a boardroom full of people from a medical background, there's only so much that you can do from an inclusive and sustainability perspective. So I think boards are starting to slowly get it, and they're slowly starting to realise that we need to bring in people from other sectors. What's happening in the banking, finance world, legal world, STEM, technology, wherever that might be. I joined an electrical vehicle company board as well. Once again, so I think companies are slowly starting to get that. How did you make the transition into the boardroom? Clearly, you've been in the boardroom with Reed Smith,
Sure.
but prior to that, you've also joined lots of other boards. You're on lots of charity boards as well.
Sure.
So how did you make that transition? And once again, it comes back to the advice. What advice would you give to people who might potentially want to jump from that executive to that non-executive role? Yeah. And maybe while they're still doing their day job.
Which is clearly what I've done. Yeah, exactly. And I'm in the same boat. And I think, look, part of, I guess the way this happened for me, it really is that what my family refers to as my low boredom threshold. I like to learn. I have a kind of constant curiosity and need to feel like I am learning something new. Yeah. So, that started with things I could get involved in. And 30% Club was probably a big part of a catalyst as well, because clearly we were very focused on getting women into the boardrooms here in the UK and indeed around the world. So, starting to think about, well, what does that look like? What are the barriers? Why are women not in the boardrooms? It really opened my eyes to, really all the no's that we tell ourselves, frankly, but also here, and thinking about, well, how valid are those no's, or how valid is it that you have to be perfect? You have to be a sitting CEO to move in. There are loads and loads of arguments that, of course, we came up with as we started trying to work through how do you get more women into the boardroom? How do we face into those challenges? Ultimately, I suppose that led me to thinking, actually, put my money where my mouth is. And, some of it was starting in charity boards for sure. I currently sit on the board of the Chartered Management Institute, for example.
I know we see you on LinkedIn with all these wonderful events. I need to come to one of these things.
You do.
Hello.
You do. And I chair CMI Women, and I will plug. I don't know when this will go out, but the 9th of May, we will have our next CMI Women conference with amazing speakers.
I'm in the Caribbean. Otherwise, I would have been there.
It's an amazing event. Well, you'll have to send someone to make sure they tell you all about it. But we'll give you the highlights.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's been a great experience. I joined the board of the Eve Appeal quite a while ago now, 4 years ago.
For those that don't know, what is the Eve Appeal?
The Eve Appeal is the UK's leading gynecological cancer charity. We cover all 5 gynecological cancers, and we particularly focus on prevention and early detection, but also awareness. And I took on the role of the chair of the Eve Appeal in February.
Congratulations.
I have had a fantastic chair in my time, Melanie Richards, and I am delighted to get to succeed her now. And it's a wonderful charity with so much to do. And so again, it's been a fantastic opportunity to learn. And then, therefore, when the for-profit boards, as they were, as they are, came along, and the opportunity to join Interpoth came along. Interpoth spun out of KPMG. It's a restructuring and debt advisory business. Amazing. Again, what they were looking for, it just felt right. They were coming out of a partnership and working into being a corporate. They were spinning out into a different kind of ownership. They were building a business, looking to become international. Just some exciting things that, some of which I had learned through my time in law, but also, places where I thought I could really contribute strategically. So that's been fun. And then I sit on the board of Hanover Investors, and it's a private equity investment manager. Have a great time. So I've gotten very lucky. And it opens doors to things like advisory board roles. So I sit on the advisory board of the Inclusion Initiative at the London School of Economics with Dr. Grace Lorden, who, if anyone doesn't know Grace Lorden, she is the best and just phenomenal at what she does. The LSE, of course, being an alma mater, I love supporting that. And then the Anthropy, which I now sit on the advisory board for Anthropy, which is really like the UK's Davos. And again, this phenomenal opportunity to bring these incredibly diverse voices together across all sectors of the UK to look at the future for Britain, the future that, we all have to design for ourselves and frankly need to do so collaboratively.
100%.
So it's been loads of fun just getting the chance to be involved with so many different kinds of people with different backgrounds, different approaches, and certainly different strategies for success, frankly. So it's been great.
That's wonderful. So one of the questions I always get asked, because like you, I have a portfolio career, I get involved with lots of different things. How do you balance it all? How do you get it all done? So I know this isn't one of the questions, but sometimes, we go with the flow, and this is like we're having an informal chat. We're like we're having lunch or a drink. So how do you get it all done? Because you've got a son. I know he's close to university age now. You've got a husband. So how do you balance all of that? And then you've still got a very powerful role within Reed Smith, and you've got all these board roles. So how do you get it all done?
Well, look, I think it starts with this curiosity and this desire to kind of always... I feel like if I'm not a little bit scared every day that either I can't get something done or I can't, I don't know enough, or I'm, going to face something I don't know the answer to. If I'm not a little bit scared every day, then I'm bored. Right. So it does mean I kind of naturally fill my days pretty full. You also described a lot of the way that you get it done. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing son. I have, my parents live nearby. They supported, especially when he was young. They really.
So your parents moved from the States here. You got them to come as well.
They did, absolutely. So, I've got this incredible support network. I have a phenomenal kitchen cabinet of friends, some of whom you've had on your podcast. So, I think this ability to really know what it looks like to be well supported and to make sure you are, I think that kind of, that lets you spread your wings and have a lot of fun and, and get out of your comfort zone more because you have somebody to look to. When I get asked to do something and think, oh, I don't know if I can really do that, I will always have one of my, mates saying, yes, you can. And here's what you need to think about. There's always that great bit of advice that comes with that. And so I do think, when I come back to what's the piece of advice, it's build your own board of advisors, your kitchen cabinet. Those are the folks that will tell you can't.
Yeah.
You know, those are the people. And they're the ones that will say you can.
And this is how to do
and
it.
This is what you need to think about. Or you can, but you should make sure that. And, you know, those are the people that will always have your best interests at heart. And, you know, they're the ones that really enable that maybe over-egging of what you might otherwise think you could do. And there's nothing more satisfying than, you know, getting to be involved with really smart people, accomplishing really exciting things. So
with a purpose, you're actually doing great things as well. No?
Yeah. And I think that, you know, it's that passion. I'm coming back to that. You know, if you can find things you're passionate about, and that's your day job, it's also the things you do in your volunteering life, if you will. You know, find those passions and then stick to them. Maybe coming back to our, you know, what are your, you know, how do you choose your boards, or how do you choose those things that you spend your time on? Early on, I got a little starry-eyed. I got contacted by a charity that was a big charity and really exciting, and everyone knows the name. And I was thinking,
the charity?
I'm not going to say.
Oh, you can tell me afterwards.
I'll tell you afterwards. But, you know, I called a girlfriend. I was like, oh, you know, this would be a really cool role. And she's like, is that something you're passionate about? And I'm like, I mean, I like it. And she said, yeah, but is it in your top three? And that's what really led me to hone in on what are my top three. You know, if I'm going to spend my time on things, and I'm going to donate my money, I'm going to donate my time, you know, I'm going to pull my friends into the things that I'm doing. I'm going to ask them to donate their money and time. You know, is it something I'm really passionate about? And it made all the difference to just have that little talking to go, it doesn't matter the name, it doesn't matter the sparkly bits. What really matters is this something you feel passionate about?
Yeah.
And your day job should be the same.
100%. I think it also comes down to having that integrity to say yes to the right things. But you touched upon something earlier on with regards to how it made you feel. And I think we can talk about successful mindsets and, you know, here are some top tips: determination, persistence, you know, having the right energy. But I think it also comes down to, how do you feel? You know, I always do the test of, when I'm in someone's presence, how do I feel afterwards?
Sure.
Is this someone that I want to spend more time with afterwards? Is this an organization? What's the culture of that organization?
Yeah.
I think really paying attention to your gut feeling,
absolutely,
that is key, and that will guide you to so many places of success than anything else. But so many times we might ignore that gut feeling. Now, this is a Successful Mindset podcast. You have a Successful Mindset podcast, or well, you don't have a podcast, but you've got a successful mindset. But who knows? Maybe one day you could fit that in.
No.
But so one of the things I do, and I've got my book finally coming out at some point, you know, it's affirmations, it's vision boards. And some people do it, some people don't. But it's funny because I asked Baroness Brenda Howell whether she does affirmations or podcasts, and she said no, but then she did say that she tells herself over and over that yes, I can do something, and that in itself is a form of affirmation.
Sure it is.
Do you do anything like that? Do you put stuff out to the universe, or do you write goals? I think most people at some point have put, you know, New Year's resolutions, but statistics show that by the 1st of Feb, most people haven't achieved those resolutions.
I don't do resolutions.
So there's other ways that you can achieve success. What would you say your sort of success mindset tips are? Do you follow me?
It's fascinating. I'm not organized enough to do some of the things you're describing.
But you are organized. You must be. You can't get everything done if
you're a Virgo. I'm telling you, I'm really bad at it.
Virgos are very much...
Exactly. And I'm like the worst Virgo, trust me. You know, I would probably come back to, I think, rather than put things out there or really, you know, wish for or do affirmations or any of that. And I suppose this is my back to my piece of advice that I really guess I gave. I surround myself with people that make me feel
good people, good energy,
and that make me feel like the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've really learned as I've gotten older that that's critical. You know, I love people and I love meeting new people, and I'm definitely an extrovert for sure.
Yeah.
But
people love you.
Well, and it's very easy to get caught up in the, I want a million.
I want to save the world.
I want to do everything with everyone.
But you can't, because if you spread yourself too thin. So you've got to have your circle, and they put the time and energy to nurture that. Because you can't meet up with everyone.
You can't.
It's
and
impossible.
I think, that took me a long time to learn, to be honest. Because, and now I've learned that not only can I not, I can't be everywhere all the time and everything to everyone, but, actually I'm missing out when I do.
Yeah.
And so, really honing in on the people that, as they always say, you forget what people tell you, but you never forget how they make you feel. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it, is be around people that make you feel powerful and able and, warm and good and happy and kind.
Happy is the key thing.
Those are all things that, really matter to me. And so in surrounding myself with people that, care about me, and I know that they do, and that I care about in return, then I always feel like there's nothing I can't do, And if I'm stretching myself too thin, they'll tell me so.
Yeah.
Or more likely, they'll jump in and help.
Yeah.
And that's
when you've got the right people around
that's
you. When they jump in and help, and they support, they see what you're doing, and they want to be part of it. They want to help you succeed with the mission. Exactly. Because it's not about us succeeding. It's about who we're trying to help. It's a bigger purpose.
It's a much bigger purpose.
What we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, this podcast isn't about you and I. It's about who can we help.
Sure.
Who are going to be benefiting from listening to these conversations. Hopefully lots of interesting people. Well, CTM have 2 million people around the world
which is amazing.
Sign up. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and I've listened before, so
I know, which is great.
Yeah.
Really. So I also mentioned we touched upon gender diversity, etc. And one of the key things that we're doing with our annual lecture with the Miranda Brawn Diversity Leadership Foundation is a focus on global gender human rights.
Sure.
What are your views on that? What do you think we should be doing? I know we probably don't have enough time, do we, on the podcast to even go there. But, one of the key things I'm doing is working with UN Women UK, and they're doing some great stuff.
Amazing.
Supporting UN Women, that's clearly helping women globally. But that's going to be one of our topics that we're focusing on for this year going forward.
I think it's critical.
It is critical, isn't it?
It is. And I think, look, there's every layer of, gender balance and, sort of women's rights, if you will, that are out there at the moment. And I think as much as we are making wonderful strides and great progress, there also have been many setbacks.
Yeah.
And so, what I guess I constantly think about is, and I think it's particularly from a position of age, seniority, you get a little older, you stop caring so much what people think. And so that ability to speak up and speak out and support people who are, honestly, I'd say in today's world, it's also be willing to disagree agreeably, right? Be
positively challenged.
Be respectful, but absolutely challenge the things that are maybe not where they should be. I'm very worried about the lack of, civil discourse, frankly, in the world at the moment. I'm very worried that young people are not having really good, thoughtful debates, disagreements, dissent about things, because it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
It is. And we've somehow let people think it's not. And I think where we are with women is that we particularly need to be allowed to disagree, and we need to be allowed to voice our views and talk about our rights, in ways that may offend others. And that's okay, as long as we aren't being offensive, right? And what people choose to be offended by is very different to being offensive. And so, I taught my son very early on, you are allowed to disagree with authority, with your teachers, whatever it may be, as long as you do so respectfully. And if you do so respectfully and they still don't like it, then I'll back you up. Because that is what we need to do as societies, right? And so I think there's a lot around, frankly, gender balance, rights for women. They're not perfect everywhere. I'm a big believer that we are always looking for improvement. So we don't need to all start in the same place. I'm very okay with that. I love different cultures, and I love getting to learn about them and being respectful about it. But that doesn't mean that I don't also try to be involved in positive change. And so I guess think that discourse, that ability to really open up to each other, to say, I'm not sure I agree, to have a very scary conversation, because there's a lot out there that is very scary to talk about, especially with the ability of anonymous trolls to come and tell you how wrong you are. You don't have to do it in public, but I think as we, as we get, to a certain age and with a certain degree of privilege, educationally, privilege, from seniority, from experience, etc., it's incumbent upon us to speak out, learn something. So, again, I'm always aware that when I disagree, I'm disagreeing to get someone to tell me their view, because maybe I won't disagree once we've had the discussion. Maybe I'm wrong. That's okay. But I'd like to hear, and I'd like it to be in a conversation that is civil enough that I can hear it, right? And I want someone to hear me, but I have to be civil enough that they can hear it. And it's just not happening, Miranda. It's not happening in the world the way it should do. And if I had one big worry, and it's for women, frankly, it's for young people, it's that we aren't talking to each other enough, that we're getting polarized, to use the common vernacular, too easily. And we shouldn't allow it. That's garbage. We can be as different as we can be. And how wonderful is that? And look what we can learn from each other because of it. But I don't think people are hearing.
Not at this moment in time, but it's wonderful that you've raised your son for him to respectfully disagree. Because that's how my parents raised me. Me too. They raised me to speak up, don't be shy. And so I think that's key. But there's so much. I think the fact that you and we are outspoken, but we do it. I think we do it in a nice way. We do it in a positive way. But like you say, sometimes, my mindset has changed over the decades. I'm sure yours has. And how I thought as a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, even how I thought last year has changed. And I think, sure, it should. You hit the nail on the head, where sometimes you might disagree, but then when you have a conversation, I think we need more conversations. People get too heated. They might read something on Twitter. I hate that platform. They might read something on Twitter, get upset, and all of a sudden, it's all angry and aggressive. And it's like, we can have civil conversations, and we might even learn something and change our opinion. Yeah, and I think that's
or we might change someone else's. And so, if you aren't having the conversation, there's no chance for education or learning. And again, my view is I better be learning something every day.
100%.
To trouble. And I do think we have it's incumbent upon us. And sometimes, I think I worry, because who would be a politician these days, and who would, and you can't speak out, and you're afraid to raise this subject. And, as they say in the States these days, you don't talk about politics or religion. Well, what else important is to talk about? If we're leaving those things out because we're afraid we might disagree, we don't know each other very well. We aren't really getting to the heart of who we are. And most importantly, we aren't recognizing that, so we disagree on something. It happens. We can still be mates. We can still learn something from each other. We can work together. We can accomplish wonderful things together. And, we accept that we're different people. So differences are inevitable. That seems to be missing.
Especially at this moment in time. We won't go there. That's probably for another podcast episode, because we'll be here all night otherwise. But
absolutely,
we only got 2 more questions left. This has gone so quick. So, you've done so much, Tamara. You are doing so much, Tamara. And it's funny, like, for the audience, it's not Tamara, it's Tamara. So if anyone is thinking it might be spelt Tamara, but it's actually Tamara. So let's get that out there.
Well, and look, I'll be honest, I answer to anything, but remember, I'm from Texas. Tomorrow's the day after today there.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have named a kid tomorrow, right? So I've been Tamara all my life, but
Tamara.
I answer to it all.
So what's next for Tamara? You're doing so much great stuff, but do you have any other, I'm sure you're still young, what else would you like to achieve, maybe personally or professionally?
Yeah, look, I think I'm having a lot of fun in the various things I'm pursuing right now. I am fascinated at the moment with the changes that are happening in the legal world. We are at an inflection point between, as I keep saying, between generative AI and Gen Z. We are having an existential crisis. And I love being part of the conversation around that. It's not always a popular one.
No, I can imagine.
But I love being part of that conversation. We're also looking at a world where lots of different types of capital are interested in professional services and business services. I'm fascinated with all of that and what that might look like. So I'm enjoying having conversations around that. And I'm continuing to pursue some passions. I get to be involved in these amazing initiatives. I get to be involved in some, fabulous growth businesses. I'd like to stay, involved in those businesses. I want to keep doing that kind of thing. I'm a deal junkie, so I love getting to work with clients. I particularly like it when the markets get a bit choppy and they are heading that way. So, I think this is an exciting time to be doing my day job as well. So
Wonderful.
I feel like there's plenty out there. Mostly I just want to keep learning.
Which is key. And I think we're so much alike in that way, because I love just the whole learning over and over, and learning in different industries as well, whether it's in the boardroom, outside of the boardroom. So I think that's key, to want to keep learning.
Sure.
Last question.
Sure. Okay.
So the podcast is called D.A.R.E. What do you dare our lovely audience to do in order to achieve their goals, create that successful mindset?
I would dare anyone to make sure that they are stepping outside their comfort zone regularly. I always say, make yourself a little scared every day. And, it doesn't have to be every day, but certainly regularly think about, what have I maybe not done that I should have done that would have been a little scary or a little uncomfortable? Who have I not talked to, reached out to? What can I be doing to expand, my horizons that might be a little uncomfortable or scary? And that will include having uncomfortable conversations, talking to people you think you really disagree with, all those things I think that are that little bit of discomfort, they are, they're the sand in the oyster. They're the things that are going to get you your pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, I love that. And I would say, in terms of what do I dare the audience to do, I think go for it. Definitely step out of your comfort zone, but don't be afraid to fail. I think so many people are scared to fail. And I think on the route to success, you're going to have many failures. So try and fail. I dare you to try and fail as much as possible, because that's the only way you're going to lead to success. Because you're going to learn more from failure than you will from success. And it builds your character, your strength, your resilience. So thank you so much, Tamara, for being a wonderful guest on the D.A.R.E. podcast. I want to thank you, the viewers and the listeners, for listening to the D.A.R.E. podcast, which is partnered with City AM. I am Miranda Brawn, the host and the producer for the D.A.R.E. podcast, and you've been listening to a wonderful conversation with Tamara Box, who is a partner at Reed Smith and has a portfolio career working on many different boards, etc., etc. So thank you so much for listening. Do not forget to follow, subscribe, and see you next time. Thank you.